and it appears to me that the gravel management budget is decreasing. So is that something that we should be concerned about, or am I not reading it correctly, Mike?
The gravel budget will be decreasing. That is specifically associated with extraction, and extraction is decreasing, so the actual budget will need to decrease accordingly. There is, I'm just trying to find within here somewhere, as a specific reference to the Upper Tuki scheme, and that's where that work needs to be covered.
So you can assure me that it's in hand here?
I can assure you that an initial sort of scoping and sizing and quantification is in hand, yes. Yep. 1, 2... One, two, two. Yeah, Upper Tuki schemes on 1 point. Yeah.
Because it does say the Regional Council will maintain effective flood control on that page, and
yes.
Yeah, I'm just not seeing the acknowledgement of the severity of the issue for a number of Central Hawke's Bay ratepayers.
I don't think it's a flood control issue. I think flood control is still there. Drainage is certainly an issue, and that's what they were raising. So we need to work.
Some people outside of that meeting are saying it's contributing to flooding on their property too.
Yeah. Well, the flooding is a lack of drainage, not a flooding from a major flood. So we're probably talking about the same thing. I see it as drainage. Yeah, okay.
A or B, doesn't matter. There's a problem there.
Yep. No, that's fine.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to comment on that, because just for the sake of the other councillors, the problem is quite huge. I mean, these are farmers that are on lowland farms, that they're getting huge amount of their farms. That on one estimate, just those guys and a few of their neighbours was 1,000 hectares. That intrusion of water from the river because the metal's up, and there's no quick economic solution, because we can't afford to just take the metal out and dump it. Where would you dump it? Nobody wants the metal. So it is an ongoing, quite huge issue facing those farmers down there, and it's not just a small number. And I don't know how you solve it. I'm just letting everyone know it is quite huge.
Okay. Further questions? You had another?
No, thank you, Rick, for coming down to the meeting. Sorry, it's flagged there, so I'd like to see where it can be.
Great. It's, you had one about the tie. I'm not asking you another one just yet. Councillor Scott. Next.
Start in the introductory section under rating, where on page 86 it actually states the percentage rate increase quite correctly. Would it be helpful if we actually included some indicative rate increases there? It's very hard for the average reader to plough through the entire paper and know what it means to them. The introduction is the important thing. If it 5.8 sounds very alarming, if it was actually in real terms and it was somewhere around $7 to $10, it means quite a different thing. So if we put an actual indicative figure of what it means to an average ratepayer?
Well, Mr. Chairman, just as a suggestion, perhaps we could refer them to...
Look, let's face it. People don't want 200 bloody pages to delve through. If they read the introduction and they read the summary, that's pretty good. If we could get some of the meaningful stuff into the summary rather than cross-referencing things, I think it just would
quite
help.
often nowadays they're doing it online too, of course. So,
yeah.
It shouldn't be that.
No, we will.
Just something simple so that people can say, well, what does that mean to me? While I'm on that page, Mr. Chairman, the passenger transport, can I just suggest that perhaps that's one of the stories that should go into our place? It's a very good news story.
To our place.
And one other thing about being up front with something, on page 183 or thereabouts, under 22, it says a cautionary note. This is the purpose of this plan is to consult with the community on spending priorities outlined within the plan and may not be appropriate for any other purpose. It's actually quite a meaningful statement. If anybody has still got awake when they get to that page of it to read that. And that's something else I believe should be right up front.
Page 182.
183, I think.
82.
82, so
Yeah.
point 22.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's,
That's financial information.
so just trying to make it into a readable and meaningful document for people who don't want to
It should be in the introduction.
go through every page.
Councillor Bevan.
Thanks, Chair. Page 104, which we've actually already traversed once, the resilient ecosystems. It's got water supply and ecosystems needs are optimised for sustainable growth. That's fantastic. Excellent statement. Then further down it's got water user groups. I'm really keen to see us promote global consents, and I'm really keen to see us promote efficient use of water, and I think absolutely implicit in doing that is requiring compulsory efficiency water use courses, and I want to see that as part of what we do there. And I'm not quite sure how we... But I remember bringing this up once before and being told that it's got to go in a long-term plan or something before it can actually happen, and I'm flagging that I want to see it happen.
I mean, certainly our regional resource management plan, which is our RMA document, signals our support for sort of a catchment-wide approach or a sub-catchment-wide approach, and as a flow-on effect from that, as part of that implementation, we have the likes of staff from our water initiatives groups working with to establish and support water user groups. So I take your point that you'd like it highlighted, and I think there's certainly a desire right throughout council for it to continue and to, as people, it's a bit like water meters. There was a real strong pushback on it a few years ago. People now accept that it's really part of normal practice and that there are some advantages to it. And I think the same's coming with this global type consent.
Yeah, and I've tested user groups or individual growers around this. How would you feel if you were told you had to go to a water efficiency course? There was no resistance to it.
Yeah.
There's two things I'd like to see.
Microphone.
Oh, sorry. There's two things I'd like to see in the commentary at the beginning of the plan. And the first is a description of, in terms that someone who's not particularly interested in regional council matters, but has a sort of passing interest in the dam and wants to know, what this means for the council. I think we've got some technical language in there which sets out what it does, but I just think it would be good to say, something along the lines, should the regional council decide to go ahead, we would expect this and this, and at this stage no impact on rates, etc., etc. Just whatever we expect it to be in a way that people can capture it clearly. There's stuff in here, I'd just like to go back and reread it. I just don't think, and I want to see it from the perspective of someone who isn't that interested. And the second issue is that I see here we've got some mention of the Napier properties, and it's about the sell down and so on, but there has been a bit of controversy about the fact that we have bundled them up and sold the income to ACC, who've given us some cash. And there's some misunderstanding out there about what's happened here, so I think this might be an opportunity to put this in and explain exactly what we've done, because there's some misunderstanding. So I just think that would be helpful. Again, and we've essentially capitalised the income stream so that we've got an asset we can then use something of. We should simply say that, or worse that effect, so when people pick up the plan, they can see, well, that's what we've done in layperson's language rather than technical language.
On page 87, we feature pretty up front here the railway proposal, and all I saw was a headline. I haven't had a chance to read it. I appreciate it's probably a moving target, but is there anything about this language that should be changed so that it doesn't look like we're floating something that's dead on arrival?
Could you perhaps run us through that? Yeah. I think it's probably the time is now after that question.
I'd like your indulgence for about 10 minutes, if that's all right. Is that time now?
it now?
Well, after that question, absolutely.
Okay.
It takes that long.
I'd like to start briefly with a bit of history. Napier-Gisborne was the last section of the Palmerston North to Gisborne line. It was completed in 1943. And as such, it's the most modern existing part of the national rail network. The main trunk line was opened in 1908, for example, Wairarap 1897. It's 212 kilometres long. It has 21 bridges, 21 tunnels and 79 bridges. It is certainly not suitable for a cycle trail use. I'll talk more about that later on if need be. So it's relatively modern, has large loading gauge, and track and infrastructure are in good condition, and that's despite Kiwi Rail's assertions to the contrary. And we've confirmed that, the NGR group's confirmed that by commissioning independent rail engineering reports. I'd like to talk briefly about the timeline to get to where we are. Now, prior to 2010 or so, the line operated intermittently under different ownership, and the best that could be said was that the service standards were variable. However, in 10-11, faced with the possibility of either making the line work or closing it, Kiwi Rail did something worthwhile. They spent about $300,000 in lowering the tunnel beds, in about 3 tunnel beds, and that enabled the carrying of 40-foot high cube containers for the first time. A major entrepreneurial road transport operator, Gisborne-based but operating nationally, Steve Wetherell Transport, then picked up and used rail as a freight forwarder, starting with the squash crop, and there's about 30,000 tonnes a year comes out of Gisborne between December and March, and that was highly successful. Really big benefits for the growers in the sense that they pack the container in the pack house, goes on the train straight to the ship and straight to the destination, whereas at the moment through pallets and that sort of thing there's a lot of double handling. Also products like that and corn, other fragile products don't carry well on State Highway 2, but the Wharerotas and the Devil's Elbow, and it's a tortuous, twisting road which is hard on trucks, hard on gear and hard on product. Steve Wetherell's success was that he guaranteed to get goods to market. If anything went wrong with rail, then he would back it up with his 80 trucks. However, the major washout in March 2012 was too big for him to back up with his 80 trucks. So Kiwi Rail in April that year assessed the repair cost of between 3.3 and 4.3 million, with 5 months to complete, and then decided to mothball. In December 2012, and this was largely initiated at the Gisborne end, Bill were commissioned to question the assumptions in a report produced by Kiwi Rail, which essentially recommended that the mothballing of the line, and it questioned costings, loadings, market share, and it still remains completely relevant. In March 2013, in other words 2 years ago, there's a group of people who are advocating for reopening of the rail, approached us, and me in my capacity as Transport Committee Chair. And I said to Fenton, look, can you come along? This can either be a complete waste of a day or something good may come of it. And in fact, something good did come of it, because there was a core of good, strong commercial people with the right sort of experience who turned up, and at the end of the day, they formed the Napier-Gisborne Rail Establishment Group, and they asked me to be the interim chair. Now, I'll talk about the people a little bit in a minute because people are very important in these things. Now, most of that is the result of work since then, although there's some stuff that goes back a year or so earlier. But there is a heap of institutional knowledge contained within these files.